A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, thank you so much for listening to our little show here where every week we talk about everything Vols. You can go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed, and when you get there, rate, review, and subscribe, because then you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it's not one right now because Monday was Labor Day. And so I was doing stuff, and so was Zach. And so now this week's show is on Tuesday. And it's usually at 6 p.m., but today it's at 7 because Zach had some stuff to do. But normally 6 p.m. Eastern time on the A to Z Sports National YouTube channel, except big announcement there. If you go to youtube.com and you type in A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers, you will stumble upon a YouTube channel that is about to be fully dedicated to this here show, and hopefully in the future, some fully dedicated content from A to Z Sports for Tennessee. They don't make video content creators. They don't grow on trees. We got to go find one, but soon we should have one. And there will just be a ton of Tennessee content there. So A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers, go there on YouTube and subscribe. And that is our new YouTube channel. Hopefully, eventually, we'll be live streaming from there. It's just not 100% set up yet. It's being workshopped. So go over and subscribe. And then eventually this will live stream there. All of our clips will go there. And then fresh content too. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, A to Z Sports.com for everything. Zach writes on the old internet. Zach, what's up, man?
We're here. We're in the season now. It is, I don't know, it's always like Christmas, that first day. I think I tweeted on Friday. It was like, that's one of the best vibe days of the year, the first Friday before the first full slate of Saturday college football games. It's a nice day, kind of some football weather going on. So it's everything that we could have imagined that it would be too, the way it turned out with obviously Tennessee, huge win, and Florida losing. How fun was that?
So beautiful. Florida stinks, as they should. The good Lord shone his face on East Tennessee on Saturday and has turned his face away from the Florida Gators, that godforsaken land. And I kid, sorry.
Billy Napier pretty much said it. Go ahead.
Yeah, they are in a pretty tough spot down there in Gainesville. And the really fun part, and obviously what we're going to talk about on today's show, Tennessee looks pretty dang good at the game of football this year. Of course, everybody's been saying this. If you've listened to analysis of this game, don't put too much stock in it. It was just UTC. Everybody and their mother said that after this game. Sure. And get that straight out of the way. Yes, it was UTC. But I think there is some to be gleaned from it because, as Eric Garsh says in the comments here, Nico for Heisman. The man looked incredible. And we're going to talk about the significance of that, how much stock we can put into that with NC State on the horizon here. And then we're going to obviously talk about that NC State game. Going to cover it all. It's not on the Big Orange Podcast, but that starts right after I tell you about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. And I'm going to plug once again for the folks that are just now showing up on the live stream. Go to the YouTube channel, new YouTube channel, A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. Go there. It's going to be this show. It's eventually going to be more Vols content, hopefully. If you want to talk about Vols content in video form, send in your no, I don't. I'm just kidding. I don't know what to do. You send your resume to Austin Stanley on Twitter. Go just tweet him a picture of your resume, and maybe you can be the video guy for us.
I'm sure he'll appreciate this.
Sorry in advance to Austin. No, but do go over there and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified with everything that comes up. Because we've gotten complaints. It's sort of like, hey, your stuff gets lost in all the Titans content on the A to Z Sports National YouTube channel, which it 100% they post so much more Titan stuff than we could ever put out here about Tennessee. And so now we're putting it over on its own dedicated YouTube channel, A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. Go subscribe. Okay, so Tennessee faced off against UTC on Saturday. It was a huge game. Myself, Jonathan Crompton, talked about it halftime postgame. There's another plug for you. Every Saturday, the Tennessee plays football. Me and former Vols quarterback Jonathan Crompton live, where these fine podcasts are sold, and we love talking about the game. Crompton's analysis is second to none. But we watched it. And Tennessee just stomped a mud hole in UTC. And let's say UTC, in context, plays in the SoCon and FCS. It's FCS. I mean, they play a complete level down from Tennessee. At the same time, NC State played Western Carolina. And Western Carolina just so happens to play in the exact same league in FCS as UTC. And Western Carolina had a lead going into the fourth quarter against NC State. So not exactly great there. But you watched this Tennessee game. Zach, what were your high-level impressions?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that first half, it just, I don't know, it didn't take long to feel different than last season. And we've talked about the Austin Peay game, how close that was. But even at other times last season when Tennessee would still win these blowout games, the explosiveness from the offense wasn't always there. It was there in the run game quite a bit. You know, we saw some huge runs from Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson last season. And you saw the occasional big pass play, but it was, you know, there's a lot of screen passes on the perimeter, a lot of just very vanilla concepts that Tennessee was getting into. It was taking longer to snap the ball between plays. A lot of looking to the sideline for checks to see what play you need to get into. And immediately with Nico on Saturday, you could see the tempo, total control of the offense. I mean, he knew exactly what to do, where to go with the ball. That to me was the first thing that I think stood out, was just how in control he was of everything. And then secondly, I think we all kind of had this moment at the same time at the exact same point in the game. It was a couple of over the middle passes that Nico made on the same drive, maybe even back-to-back plays. And that first one, I told y'all in the group text that we're in, we're talking about Tennessee stuff. The first one, I audibly gasped when I saw the pass because it was that good. Like
it was.
You hate to overhype it because it's not what I want to do here. It's just in that moment, you're like, oh, that's what this team was missing last season. That's what, I mean, it looked better coming out of his hand than it looked coming out of Hendon Hooker's hand. And we know how great Hendon Hooker was in this offense. And in that moment, yeah, it's Chattanooga, but those throws, man, that was what Joe Milton just couldn't consistently do last season. And, you know, he gave it his best effort. He did all he could. He's in New England now trying to iron out those, you know, kinks in his delivery or whatever causes him to be off target at times. But man, he just looks so fluid, so smooth. You got to keep it going, but it was everything you could have hoped that it could have been against Chattanooga. One half, you know, setting a record for passing yards in a half, not just having to go score in the red zone with your legs, finding Ethan Davis down there, you know, hooking up with Dante Thornton. It was, I don't know, I can understand why everybody's so excited walking out of that game, even though the caveat there is that, okay, yeah, it was just Chattanooga. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, that right exactly. There. Yeah, they outperformed our score prediction. I think we had 52-3, 55-3. I mean, and we thought we might be high.
Outscored it by 17 points.
Yeah.
I mean, they blew the doors off this thing, and Nico just looks every bit of the real deal. Is he perfect? No, he's not. I think the craziest part out of all of this is that he still has room to grow. I mean, you saw in that 2-minute warning or whatever I guess the 2-minute warning is like trademarked. They have to call it the 2-minute timeout or something.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I didn't pick up on that. Oh,
yeah. We were talking about that. And we were like, why do they call it the 2-minute timeout? Like it's a 2-minute warning. But regardless, another cool little thing with the NFL and their incredibly litigious protection of everything they do. But you saw in that final 2 minutes, it wasn't smooth as butter, and then he had those moments where he wasn't absolutely perfect, and he still has room to grow. And I think you're going to see probably more of it against NC State when they have a little bit more of a powerful defense. There'll be moments where it's not perfect, and he still looked this good. That it's crazy. This man had played one full collegiate football game. He is just now probably 19, maybe 20 if he's like an older-ish student. And he just looked cool, calm, collected, never shaken. Even when plays broke down, he knew when to run. Mr. Jones says here, quick decisions and knowing when to run was huge, and his accuracy, as you were saying, Zach, was absolutely ridiculous. Eric says he started 8 for 8 for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's just the way that he shined in this game was unlike anything that we've seen around here. He is technically, he's as old as a sophomore, but he's technically a redshirt freshman. And this year, I don't want to speak out of school. But this year, I think he's going to be better than Hendon Hooker was in his 5th year of college. And Hendon Hooker had one of the great seasons as a Tennessee quarterback ever until he got hurt. He had a transcendent season that took Tennessee to heights they hadn't been at in 20 years. And I think Nico's probably going to be better than that this year. That's what you saw. He has to do it in a couple of different ways that are big that we haven't seen yet. Under significant pressure. Obviously, that's going to happen against your Alabamas, your Georgias. Some of the other teams on the schedule don't look like pushovers. Oklahoma. And then in crunch time, the 2-minute drill. You can't have a screwed up 2-minute drill in those big moments like he had in this UTC game. That can't happen. You have to be that clutch guy. And so that is still yet to be seen, but the pure talent there it's there and more. He glides around the field. He's elusive, smart, quick decision maker. His release is incredibly quick. His throws are incredibly accurate. And it's just everything. Everybody's been saying he's perfect for the Josh Heupel system. Most of the teams in America would trade in their quarterback for this kid. Let's be clear how special the dude is that Tennessee has right now. I'll ask you this. In the entire landscape of college football that you've seen so far after this first weekend, what quarterback would you trade Nico for in America that you've watched?
Yeah, I don't think there's one that really sticks out because I think with Dylan Gabriel, as a Josh Heupel coach quarterback, you saw a lot of that Oregon game. That offense looked kind of like Tennessee's last year in a sense.
It looked
rough.
A
lot of screen passes and everything was completions under 10 yards. And plus, obviously in context, he's so hand in hand with Josh Heupel and Joey Hosley on everything they do. That's why this is really magical. It's the talent and then the scheme, all of that coming together. It's kind of the perfect storm. We think it will be. And then the season does kind of get off to a good start the way the schedule lays out. Eric there in the comments mentions it. You play Chattanooga, which is almost like a preseason game, right? You get to kind of do what we saw Saturday. They played a ton of people. That's the most people I think I've ever seen Tennessee play in a game, which is usually a complaint that we have. They got everybody on the field, guys that will not play guys that might not even travel to Athens, got in this game against Chattanooga.
96 dudes. They tweeted it today.
So you had that aspect of it. You get that out of the way, then you go play a real opponent in NC State, an opponent we think you should handle, but they're a Power 5 team. They have Power 5 or Power 4. They have Power 4 talent. This is a team that was kind of like a dark horse playoff team. I expect them to improve a decent amount from week 1 to week 2. I'm not, Dave Doran he's not been a championship caliber coach out there, but he usually has them in a 8, 9, 10 win season. They'll be better than what we saw against Western. But you go play them at a neutral site where I'm sure there'll be plenty of NC State fans. We know there'll be plenty of Tennessee fans. You get Kent State at home. So you get these 3 games where you kind of get challenged in that NC State game. Then you play another team to kind of at home to, sharpen everything and get everything the way you want it. And then you go on the road and play Oklahoma. it's so much better than having to play Oklahoma like this week, for example. So I think that part, you couldn't ask for this season to start a better way, I don't think.
It is a very nice setup to get him into the flow of things. But yeah, David says it here. Oklahoma will tell us the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But I do think that you can make declarative statements after what we have seen. The talent is there. Now, does that translate straight A to B to him being a legendary quarterback? No, because you don't know how he's going to handle pressure situations. Flat out. We do not know. Iowa had one of the better defenses in college football last year, and he shredded them. Now you were playing a little bit of a handicapped version of their full-blown defense from last year, but still, I mean, that defense that he played in Iowa last year was far better than what he saw against UTC this weekend, and he laid 35 on those boys. So, there might have been a defensive score in there. I don't remember everything.
Yeah, James Pierce had the pick six.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, hey, still, put up pretty nice numbers against an Iowa defense that was super stout. And I am willing to say the pure talent with what he showed in the way that he fits into this offense, he has the ability to do absolutely everything you need him to do. Period. Like I said, he has more ability now as a redshirt freshman than Hendon Hooker did, and Hendon Hooker in his 5th year in college. And Hendon Hooker had that legendary season, but Hendon Hooker, obviously, we know hindsight 2020. Hendon Hooker had that clutch gene. He had that into the Alabama game, unfazed. Let's go make a play. It doesn't matter. Does Nico have that? We don't know, and that is yet to be seen. But it was just pretty crazy. Kevin says it here. I was happy to see the chemistry with Nico and Brew. How about Brew McCoy? I don't want to say he looked like a brand new dude, but looking very well, just
like an outside linebacker.
Yes,
edge rusher,
and wearing the number 5, the Hendon Hooker number,
which he said he it's always been a number that he loved. Right, he grew up loving Reggie Bush. He's from Southern California, went to USC, before he came to Tennessee. He said he wanted to give the Hendon Hooker number a year to breathe. Coming right off that 2022 season, which is understandable.
Hey, I respect that. But it was just incredibly exciting all the way around. Everything that you saw as far as that goes, because Nico was great, and then you go to Brazel looks really fun. Brew looked great. Dante Thornton looked great and made some awesome plays. Looks like he's already kind of back in his stride. Now, this is tough. I feel like a lot of the analysis that I've heard with Nico playing so well has turned into a little bit of a Joe Milton bashing activity. A little bit out of necessity, because you do have to make that comparison and just go like, oh, they didn't have this year, and now with Nico, I think they will. But yeah, realistically, just the difference that you can tell in the catchability of the balls that are getting put out there for these guys, like how much of a relief does that have to be if you're a Dante Thornton who kind of struggled at times last season, was coming into his own a little bit, got injured. You want to look as good as possible. I mean, he's just floating balls out there on a cloud to you and just putting them right where they need to be. That's got to be so nice, because it makes everybody look good when you have a guy that can do that. And that, if he can do that against NC State, obviously the hype's going to get taken to up 10 notches. And if he could do it against Oklahoma on the road in Norman, in these, we're going to know in 4 weeks exactly where we're at with this dude, and the potential is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I think you said it a couple weeks ago. That Oklahoma game is kind of like that LSU game in 2022. That's where, I mean, that was the moment when everyone kind of set up and was like, oh, okay, yeah, Tennessee, they might be pretty good. They went to Baton Rouge and handled LSU. I think that'll definitely probably be the case if they start 4-0 and beat Oklahoma out there. Really, you don't even have to be a blowout. That'd be great. Low stress wins are fantastic, especially in football. But that'll definitely be where the story really begins, I guess, for this team, if they're going to do something special. As far as the Milton talk, mentioning that real quick, it's unfortunate. Like, we know who Joe Milton was, talented guy. It is what it is at this point. The guy loved Tennessee, though. You have to appreciate what he did for 3 years. He's a big part of the culture that is at Tennessee right now. he could have wrecked that culture in 2022. I mean, he really could have, sitting behind Hendon Hooker after initially winning the job, seeing all the praise that Hooker got, and you never really saw. I don't know if inside maybe it got to him ever, but on the outside, what you saw at games and what everybody has said that you saw behind the scenes, he's a key reason that culture is where it is. So the fact that he got the start last season, I think that probably bought Josh Heupel a lot of equity with a lot of players for a long time because of how loyal he was to Milton. And you know what? He went 9-4. We haven't had a lot of 9-4 seasons that we've seen around Tennessee the last 20 years. That was like the fourth time they've won 9 games since Philip Fulmer left. You got to appreciate that. You know, it wasn't the season that everybody wanted, but you had some nice wins there. You got revenge on South Carolina. You beat Texas A&M. You beat Kentucky on the road. Got you to the Citrus Bowl, and then graciously stepped aside. He didn't have to do that to let Nico start that game to get a head start on this season. I think Milton should always be a fan favorite for what he did for the university.
Yeah, he was a very solid, just kind of, I don't know, a tweener, like just sort of a bridge guy to get you to where you needed to be here with Nico. And I feel like I'm blowing up Nico's spot here. You know, I just really showering him with accolades again. We got to see it against these top-notch opponents, but it's all going to come in time. But my entire point is just the talent at a base level, the ability to take you where you want to go. We have unequivocal proof it's in there, period. Will he harness it and put it out there against your Oklahomas, your Alabamas, your Georgias? We'll see. That is still what has to happen here. But is that talent in there, contained within Nico's body? Yes, he can do that. So, I if you're asking me, I think we're in for something pretty special here. But and Jennifer says yesterday was Nico's 20th birthday. To our question to his age, still a very young man. He's no Keenan Peely, who's I think 41 now. His 41st birthday just passed, I think. I saw that he no. I was gonna show here. Nugs said just quickly, he said that he couldn't find the new channel, which again got A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers is the new channel here. So what we did was we took over my old YouTube channel that I had. It was called Orange and White Report from years ago, back when I used to be on Swain Event and do all that stuff. We took it over, and so if you search up Orange and White Report, it would probably come up. But what I'll do right now is post it in the comments on YouTube. So there you go. It's posted on Facebook. It's posted on YouTube. That is the new channel right there. But I bet if you search Orange and White Report, it would come up first thing. A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. Look that up. Now let's talk about the defense. We have given enough credit to the offense now. The defense too. UTC only scored 3 points. Not that UTC is an offensive juggernaut or anything like that, but Tennessee from the beginning to the end of this game, even with the backups, complete and utter dominance. Just pushing these guys 5 yards off the ball, like just in their space on every single play, to where the quarterback was just kind of panic throwing on a bunch of plays and just trying to get it out as quickly as possible. And you watched NC State against Western Carolina. They're getting pushed around by Western Carolina a little bit. And that is a bad omen if you were on NC State's side watching the tape of what this defensive line can do. The defensive backs might be another story, but we can start with the defensive line. It was hellacious, man.
Yeah, and you didn't, like, James Pierce only played 10 snaps or something crazy low. Yeah. So it's not even like it was just that guy that was wrecking the game. I mean, we've heard about this defensive line all off season. True to form, they were causing a lot of problems for Chattanooga up front. Overall, defensively, you hold them to 3 points. Look, I mean, 2 years ago after the Alabama game, they played UT Martin at home. I think it was homecoming, maybe. Either way, they gave up 20-some points to that team. I mean, they won 60-something to like 20-something, right? I mean, it was a blowout. It wasn't even close. but they gave up some points. UT Martin scored. I remember they went right down the field, I think, at the beginning of that game. And we're
I
like,
remember this.
whoa, is this
Yep.
like a hangover from the Alabama game? What's going on here? This team never did that against Chattanooga. It would have been real easy. I mean, they were up, what was it, 45-0, I think, at halftime against Chattanooga. Your starters are coming out. It's super easy to go in there and just get this game over. It was hot. Most of the crowd had left by the end of the game, understandably so. I don't think they deserve a lecture for that. It was super hot. Let's go home and you guys got it type deal. They kept the pressure on. I mean, the Nathan Leacock chasing down, obviously that's offense, but chasing down that pitch six that Gaston Moore pretty much threw, preventing the score there. At the 30-yard line, I can't remember. Chattanooga is still in field goal range. They end up missing a field goal, so you stuff them there. You don't let them score, even though they're down there close to the red zone. They get into the red zone, miss the field goal, keep those points off the board. Jordan Ross on special teams, Josh Heupel said on his show that they weren't even trying to block a punt there. I mean, it was already 62-3 at that point. They're not lined up to block the punt, right? But they're still doing what they're supposed to do, and the opportunity was there, and Jordan Ross, I mean, true freshman, blocks the punt, scoops it up, just tough to do, and scores there. Very smooth looking touchdown late in the game where you don't have to do that. But if you're gonna be a championship team, you kind of have to. I mean, you gotta go out there. It's cliche, but the scoreboard's gotta be 0-0 every single play and until the game's over. And it's tough. It's super tough to keep that mentality in a hot game like that. And when you've already the outcome's not in doubt in any way. And just across the board, those guys from the starters to all the guys that got in at the end of the game played extremely hard. That tells you the culture that Josh Heupel's built, and that's the only way. I mean, that's the way it is at Georgia. It's the way it was at Alabama for years. It's the way it was at Clemson when they had a little run there. You have to have that mentality. And yeah, it's just Chattanooga, but I think seeing it against just Chattanooga is incredibly important and more telling than seeing it against, an SEC opponent.
There was definitely plenty to take away from this game on both sides of the ball. You saw it was a clip from the SEC Network. I retweeted it this morning. I forget who both of the guys it was, but it was SEC Network morning show. And the guy on there basically said, somebody told me, oh, you should watch Tennessee's game and look how good Nico is. And he said, oh, that's dumb. It's against UTC, whatever. And then he said he watched it and went, oh, whoa, like this guy's on a different plane here. This is kind of crazy. And so there is something to take away. And as far as the defense goes, like you said, James Pierce didn't really even play in this game. Didn't have to, obviously.
Ricky Gibson didn't play. Several guys didn't. They held out kind of precautionary.
They're just teeing off, and Boo Carter had a really nice chase down, and
nice to see him in the game early.
Oh, yeah,
that was one of those things we kind of wondered about. Like
that, it was so good to see that because they've gotten their reputation of not playing young guys, and he's in there almost right at the very beginning of the game, and Tyree West just destroying dudes out there, ending lives.
That dude's an X factor. I mean, that's a guy that. When you talk about the defensive line, it's James Pierce, it's Joshua Josephs, it's Bryson Eason, Elijah Simmons, Omari Thomas, Dominic Bailey. It's those guys, Caleb Herring. And Tyree West is a guy that had a huge performance in the bowl game. Didn't play a ton of snaps in the bowl game, really, but made a big impact. And didn't play, I think he only played like 16 snaps maybe against Chattanooga. Still had a couple tackles for loss, a forced fumble, a sack. I mean, that's a guy that he's a junior. It's taken him a couple of years to develop, but he's a former 4-star guy, and you're starting to see that talent. And that's Rodney Gardner right there.
Yes.
That is, in previous years, that guy under previous Tennessee staffs and previous defensive line coaches just kind of fades away and never really becomes a factor. And that's not an insult against Tyree West, but you kind of need that, that development, obviously. And if you don't get it right at first, it's okay. Like, don't give up on those guys. And Rodney Gardner is not going to do that, and he kept working, and now he's gonna be a key part of that defensive line rotation.
I mean, he just looked like he played so hard on all those snaps, and he had one of those sacks where
you watch it in the entire room of people that you're there with, everybody goes, "Ooh," like, "Oh, that one's gonna hurt." Yeah. I mean, yeah, you just dog out there, and so you have a defensive line that is, I've heard national guys say is the best defensive line in the SEC. I mean, that is not coming from me. Go and listen to some of this national analysis; they're saying it too, and it's just really talented, really deep. And that's got to be pretty scary. Now you move to the linebackers. You look like you got talent there. It's not as good, but they're flying around too. They play really hard. And the defensive backs, you have potential there. I will say, you still saw like they still don't turn around and look for the ball. You still, I mean, again, something that you could take away from a game against UTC. They make the play technically, but they still don't turn around and look at the ball. And I don't know. Is that from Willie Martinez? Is it just that Heupel doesn't care? Like what?
Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't make sense
I
to
feel
me.
I feel like there's got to be a reason. I've never been a secondary coach. I've never been a defensive back, so I don't know. But you don't see that with every team, right? You don't see that style with every team. So I don't know. Maybe it's like the old, Zach Izzani when he's a wide receivers coach had that really weird wide receiver stance. He all had them sit in. We made fun of the guy, and now he's spent like the last 9 years in the NFL on various staff. So he's made a career. He clearly knows what he's doing, but it was weird to us. Maybe it's a situation like that.
Maybe, but there's just a lot of potential there outside of the defensive line. But the real joy there is that defensive line is going to make a significant difference for those defensive backs. Because if you can pressure the quarterback, it makes the life of those defensive backs so much easier. They're not just out there on an island having to cover for 10 seconds on every play. And that's very encouraging. So we'll see again what happens. NC State's offensive line didn't look A+ in that Western Carolina game. But I think it's going to be a good year for the defense, much like Nico, where I think we can make some declarative statements about that defensive line. They are nasty. There are some dogs on a defensive line who are going to make a bunch of plays for you if everybody can stay healthy this season. So that's fun too. You win by 66. You move into the Cincy State game. So before we finish up the second half of the show here, talking about NC State, anything else with this UTC game you want to point out, Zach?
No, I mean, like I said, the competitiveness and just the effort that you saw for 60 minutes in this game, to me, even beyond what we saw from Nico, because look, like we expected pretty much that from Nico. I think it kind of confirmed, like, okay, yeah, this guy is that good. Like we've seen it, we've heard it, we've seen it a little, we've heard about it a lot, and now you see it in, it's his team, and you felt that after the game when he talked to the media. It was different than last season. Like he kind of knew his role last year. He wasn't trying to be that, and he's not a super loud guy anyway, but the confidence I think that you saw from him, like he's the leader of this team. He knows it now and he's comfortable in that role. And I think that was always the one thing that I was kind of not really skeptical, just wondering about with Nico, because he's not a loud guy. Not that you have to be a loud guy to do that. I mean, Joe Burrow's not a loud guy usually either, but would he be able to step into that role and be that guy for an SEC program? And I think the answer is a resounding yes. And we've seen that after this first game. So that and the effort were the two biggest takeaways for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There was a lot of encouraging stuff from that game. And I think you're set up to now with this NC State game to just find even more. While at the same time, I think against NC State, you're going to find some stuff that needs to be worked on too, which is really good going into that Oklahoma game.
A shovel pass or whatever.
Yeah. What is going on there? They ran that twice and it stunk both times.
Yeah, my theory is that was something they were trying to put on tape to mess with NC State a little bit.
Maybe.
Or maybe they messed it up on purpose to throw NC State off. I don't know.
Now there's a theory. Yeah. Although on one of those, Cam Seldon literally turned the wrong way.
Yeah, it's not good. That's probably not the right. I mean, that's just.
Yeah. But maybe they told him to do that.
They've run that in the past. They used to run that with Princeton Fant, a little bit in 2022, and it worked the couple of times they broke it out.
It was the 2-point conversion against Alabama.
Yes.
They ran that. A huge play in 2022. So Hey, maybe it's just been sniffed out. I don't know. Maybe just Cam Seldon just screwed it up. Or the most fun answer, it's Josh Heupel pulling a fake out, and now they have Tennessee screwing that up on tape.
Oh, speaking of Cam Seldon, running backs looked pretty good too.
Yes, yeah, we didn't even talk about that really.
Cam Seldon looked pretty shifty, very healthy.
Yes,
that's a great sign. We didn't think that guy'd play for the first few weeks, and
he was the first guy to touch the football.
Yeah,
on the kickoff.
Yeah, that was encouraging. I'm a little. I wrote about this. I didn't read the comments. I'm sorry if anybody blasted me. I'm sure there were some. I didn't love having, I guess, Squirrel and Jermod McCoy, and even Boo. I kind of gave a true freshman, but your top corner, one of your top wide receivers back there returning punts. That
no,
I know it's a weapon. You gotta have somebody back there, but I don't know. There's got to be another option.
Yeah, keep it to the players that play at positions where you actually have depth.
Maybe even like Mike Matthews, the true freshman wide receiver. If you feel comfortable with him back there, you don't want him to get hurt. You don't want anyone to get hurt, but you lose a true freshman wide receiver for a little bit, you're not in dire straits, because that's not it. We want to see Mike Matthews make an impact as soon as possible, but we're not counting on it as soon as possible.
Kevin says our defensive line is going to be a nightmare this year. Wes says that the DBs, it's got to be Martinez coaching. And he also said the T-landers looked good. He did. We didn't, kind of like with the running backs, we didn't bring out the linebackers a ton.
But he looks like a classic 90s linebacker.
Yes, he definitely does. And Billy Bob says Vols over NC State 42-7. Well, let's get to our prediction for that NC State game, Zach. What is it? The Mayo Classic?
Dukes.
The Dukes Mayonnaise Classic.
What is up with these neutral site games having sponsors? I noticed it in the USC LSU game. These games need to be on campus. I can't stand it.
I hate it. And they continue to do it. And I mean, they said they were still having something I saw. They were having still a tougher time selling tickets. Because I always just feel like with Charlotte, I've been to Charlotte a pretty decent amount. And I go there and I'm like, it's all right.
It's fine. I mean,
it's a city.
It's like it's not city, and it has all the things that big cities are supposed to have, but there's no character really.
Yes,
to it. There's no defining quality. You don't go to Charlotte for a specific reason other than business.
Yeah, it's very corporate. It feels, it's like the Courtyard Marriott of cities. It's a business hotel of cities. It
is.
Yeah. That's Charlotte for you. And God, just freaking, why was it not just in Raleigh?
Raleigh's more fun. There's more stuff to do.
Yes, I agree. I've been to both of them a bunch of times. Yeah, well, either way, we could complain about that all day, but let's talk about that actual football game right after I tell you about the good folks at Zen Sports. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to a $100 no danger first wager. If your bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. But there's even more good news. Zen Sports has a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program, and if you qualify, you can earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it. There are even sportsbook bonuses. Go to zensports.com/VIP to check that program out if you think you might qualify. What are you waiting for? Zen Sports offers true odds on all parlays. Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, betting just got better. Go download it. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger. First wager limited to plus 500 odds to qualify. Boosted odds are derived from equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports. Seriously, go download it. It's great. They're revamping their app. Kind of getting a facelift, so there has never been a better time to go and get Zen Sports. Now, Billy Bob does have a correction for us. He does say Charlotte is NASCAR heaven. That is true.
Yeah.
NASCAR headquarters is there.
I've been to some NASCAR races down there. It's a good time.
Yeah, that's okay. Fine, there. Little bit of defining characteristic, but there's just like, hey, you just go a little bit further out into the coast, and you got some good,
Wilmington, Hilton Head, Savannah. Well, I guess Hilton Head's more like South Carolina.
It's not more like South Carolina. It is.
It's very much South Carolina.
Yeah.
What's out there? Outer Banks,
Yeah.
Hatteras, like that whole. If you go a little bit south, Myrtle Beach is now like, just keep going and you get to more fun places. But regardless, let's talk about this football game. Tennessee will take on NC State. I think we both watched NC State play Western Carolina on that Thursday night. They looked pretty rough. They have Grayson McCall at quarterback, who is coming in from Coastal Carolina.
Also in South Carolina.
And that's true. Myrtle Beach, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina. Shout out to Myrtle Beach.
Chanticleers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chanticleers, whatever that means.
It's a bird.
And there you go. And so he's coming in. He looked, I'd say, serviceable. I think there's throws he can't make because he doesn't have the arm strength. He's like 9 years into a college career at this point, just been around for forever. and he's like decent, pretty good, not a complete world beater. Their offense in general, I think the dude that everybody's going to bring up in this one is Kevin Concepcion, who scored 3 touchdowns in that game against Western Carolina. That dude is the truth. He's a very good wide receiver. They have more than just that. Defense, it's decent. I believe they had to replace all but one defensive back from last year, although that might not be that bad of a thing because NC State wasn't very good last year. It's what they go 6-6 a year ago, something like that. This is one of those situations where there's a lot of hype.
They were 9-4 actually.
Oh, they were 9-4. Sorry.
That's like 9-4. That's their thing. He's like the Jeff Fisher of NC State.
8-4 in the regular season. Sorry, I sold them short. Apologies. But 8-4 in the ACC. You can debate the merits of going 8-4 in the ACC because it's not a very good league. But they did return a fair amount of starters outside of that DB position. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a lot tougher than UTC. No offense to UTC, but it just is what it is. And how are you feeling right off the bat for this one, Zach?
I don't know. After that game and the way NC State played, I feel probably more confident than I should. I think, and this is Josh Heupel's 4th season. We've seen him in these games. They caught Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh was a pretty tough team to play, and Kenny Pickett was up there that one year, and then you had to play him on the road, and you got that win in 2022. But you've seen him blow out Virginia. I feel pretty confident that they'll go in there and take care of business in this game. I think NC State will get better. Like I said, I think they'll improve a decent amount from week 1 to week 2. I think Grayson McCall, that's his first game ever, with NC State against Western Carolina. You don't expect it to be perfect. You go back, watch the tape. I think he'll get better and feel more comfortable in the offense. It's not going to be like he's in mid-year form or anything. The only things that really concern me, like defensively with NC State, is that their defensive coordinator spent a lot of time in the Big 12. Tony Gibson, I think he's at West Virginia for quite a while. He's played against those Baylor-style offenses that Tennessee kind of runs quite a bit. So it's not like – I'm not saying that he's got like the answer to stop it by any means. Obviously, a lot of guys have played against this offense haven't been able to stop it. But he's got some experience on how to prepare for it, what works, what doesn't work. What gives NC State a better chance to have success against this offense, against Tennessee's offense. So I don't think that you can just say, they're just going to shred NC State just because Tennessee looked good and this up-tempo offense is going to catch them off guard. They know what they're getting into. They know the story. They kind of know what to expect. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to, Tennessee might go score 50 points. I don't know. That's just the only thing that I see that's like, okay, I could see them having some success on the defensive side of the ball because of that.
Yeah. Dave Dorn has always put a pretty solid defense on the football field. I've never felt like, I haven't watched a just ton of NC State football since he's been there, but, decent amount. They're always fairly competitive in the ACC, and he's always put a pretty good product out there.
He's equivalent to like Mark Stoops in the SEC, I'd say.
It just always like he's going to pop up, have a 9-win season, and and keep them around there.
Yeah.
And hey, there's a lot of merit to that and being able to do that. But I've never felt like he's just, oh man, he really coached these guys up and he took them to a different level from where they could be. And but the thing that just gets me with this game is just the talent disparity. Nug says it right here. It says Doran can scheme to stop it, but he doesn't have the dudes. And that is my biggest overarching thought with this game is just Tennessee has more guys. The defensive line should eat. The offensive line should be able to hold. While NC State's defensive line, definitely not bad. Probably got some guys on it that are at least going to compete to make it to the NFL. But the offensive line, again, barring anybody getting injured or unforeseen circumstances, the offensive line should be able to hold up. Nico should be able to operate. I think Dylan Sampson's going to eat in this one because how much see the exact stats of Western Carolina. Am I wrong? It seemed like Western Carolina gashed them pretty well. I don't remember if it was all through the air and all the details there. But let's say if Western Carolina could run on these boys, Dylan Sampson should go for 200.
Yeah, that's a game where NC State's depth kind of helped them win that game. Not that NC State has like elite depth or anything. I don't know their roster from top to bottom, but they have more depth than Western Carolina. Obviously, they have more talent than Western Carolina. That usually, we see it all the time in these games where they're close at halftime, close into the fourth quarter, but then the team with the more talent usually ends up prevailing just because they got more guys, and it's tough to go out there and play 3 hours like that, or 4 hours for college football game because they're absurdly long. But I think that was probably the case there.
I think it absolutely was because you just saw it. They just ran out of dudes as an FCS team would in that situation. They did run on NC State, 120 yards on the ground. Cole Gonzalez alone, 75 yards on 6 carries, 12.5 yard average.
Now imagine spreading that NC State defense out and getting the ball with Dylan Sampson.
Good luck, boys. That's, and so it just feels like Tennessee just has more dudes at every spot. Now, could Tennessee get thrown on with the DBs not being the best unit for Tennessee? Yes. And I honestly, much like it's been with Heupel the entire time here, NC State's probably going to get some here. They're probably going to get 14, 21 points or something, and you are going to have to run it up at least that much, probably. They were able to put 38 up on Western Carolina. What does that translate to against Tennessee's defense? Now, Tennessee's defensive line is just eating them alive. Maybe not. Maybe they don't score that much. You saw it. 22 and what, that Texas A&M game last year? What did they hold Texas A&M to? 13 in that game.
Yeah,
they've had their moments.
Yeah, I don't think we really know for sure about this secondary quite yet. They didn't play that full game together against Chattanooga.
No.
It's such a hard game to evaluate secondary play anyway. I'm not going to say they're going to be better than we expect. I think the possibility is there for them to be better than we expect. I think they really like Jermon McCoy, Boo Carter, if he played, more experience he gets. They really like Ricky Gibson. Turrentine has a ton of experience. I think they could be better than we think.
Jermon McCoy was a guy that, as I was saying, I kind of listened to some national analysis, Andy Staples and some different guys. And Jermon McCoy is brought up multiple times.
He was really good as a true freshman at Oregon State.
Yeah. And hopefully that translates over to Tennessee and the SEC. That would be really exciting just to get a real dude back there in the defensive backfield. But, again, if the defensive line eats, the defensive backs are not going to have to be that great in this game. If McCall is just running for his life, that although what I could see is that they try to game plan around it, like Tennessee sometimes has had to do. You roll the guy out a lot to try to avoid sacks, and there are things that you can do to try to avoid that because they got to be looking at their whole season too, especially if you're not going to expect to lose this one. But if you're NC State, you got to play your odds here and go like, okay, we do have to play some kind of a longevity game here. We can't let our guy just get murdered out there. And so I I would expect probably some of that, and maybe he's quick outs, rolling them out, some things like that. Well, because if they don't do that, I think Tennessee is going to eat this dude alive. So good luck.
Yeah. It's. I mean, that was the A&M. Who was that? Was that Max Johnson? Who was that at A&M? He got. I mean, he was. I felt bad for the guy at some point. He was doing all he could. Yeah, I mean, he just couldn't get rid of the ball fast enough. He had no chance.
So when I look across the board at this game, Tennessee is just better at most positions. With that said, I'll throw it to you now, Zach. We're coming up on an hour here. Don't have too much time left. Your score prediction for this one. How are you feeling about the Dukes Mayo Charlotte Classic or whatever?
I think Tennessee's defense is going to play better than we think. They'll give up some points because it's not Chattanooga. I think they're going to score. I think it's going to be like that 2012 NC State game. Those are the vibes I'm getting. Even though it's not quite the same hype, NC State that year was getting some weird hype because of, I don't even know why. That was the David Amerson game where Cordero Patterson torched him. I think it's going to be that kind of game, though. It has that feel, and Tennessee's just so talented. I think it's something like 45-13 Tennessee. Like I think they roll. I think they roll and
blowout.
There's been far too many times that I've went conservative, especially in 2022 on Tennessee scoring points. But at this point, with this quarterback and what we saw, I think they're going to put some points on the board.
You and Nugs feeling similarly, 45-17. He gives NC State a little more credit than you do. If you do have a score prediction for anybody that's watching, drop into the comments and we'll read it out, see who's right after Saturday. I feel pretty similarly. I think this is going to ultimately be a pretty comprehensive win for Tennessee. They are just better at pretty much every level here. Defensive line should be able to work, and Nico, he's going to be much more pressed than he was against UTC, but I don't see, just a ton of work. I think NC State did lose one of their top linebackers, I think, in that game to a targeting call against Western Carolina, but I think he'll be back. They'll either miss him for a half or he'll be back for the full game. I don't exactly remember, but he did get ejected. And I think a defensive
that was
back
in the first half. So yeah,
defensive in one of the shows I was listening to today.
The safety is it the one that I think he tore his ACL last season.
Yes,
he's still out. Yeah.
Yeah. The defensive back may not be playing. So, regardless, I don't. Their defense is going to be essentially 100% or close to it. And it's still just not a world-beating unit. And I think Tennessee, as we were saying, they'll spread these guys out. They'll run the ball like crazy. And if you can run the ball here, it's over. Then you can hit them over the top. You can, get them 100 different ways as far as that goes. As long as Nico plays the way that he played against UTC and has that same accuracy and that same composure, and I don't see a reason why he wouldn't here. Even though I'm hoping he gets more. More of a test here. If he doesn't, NC State is in for a long season. But,
I don't know how long. They're in the ACC.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Do they play Florida State? Do they play? I don't know.
Oh, God, Florida State stinks, man. But I think Tennessee will get a lot on the ground. I think they'll get a lot through the air. They're going to crack off some big plays because, Nico just throws such a beautiful long ball, man. God, if he, like I said, if he can just still have that same composure and that same accuracy, this one's done. And I'll give NC State a little more credit. I'll go 41-21. 20-point win. But 3 touchdowns for NC State. That's all they get. And yeah, it's a big win for Tennessee. 20-point win. AFK TV. He just says 31-13. I assume Tennessee is the choice there. Maybe it's NC State. Maybe it's an NC State fan. I don't know. Wes says 51-13 Vols. I could see any of that. I could also see, and in fact, I would almost predict it might be close at halftime. it might not be a runaway train already at halftime for Tennessee, or it might. It might be like the LSU game in Baton Rouge a couple of years ago, where you're just already beating their head in by halftime. Who knows? But I could see it maybe being, 17-10 at halftime. Oh, it's closer, and then Tennessee breaks off 3 touchdowns on 3 consecutive drives or something, and suddenly they're up a lot bigger than they were. So yeah. So 41-21, you said 45-13.
Mm-hmm.
Total blowout, man. I hope so. I hope for everybody. Yeah, it's BG says 41-21. We appreciate all the comments, all of the predictions. Oh, and AFK TV says it's definitely UT. So he's not an NC State fan. My father-in-law, NC State alum, and an NC State fan. I'll probably be watching the game with him. Chances are he lives like 5 minutes from me. So, yeah, I'll be in the midst of an NC State fan. I watched the game this last week. It was a huge group of people, but with an Alabama fan. That was interesting, actually. Got to talk to him a little bit about how he's feeling about the new coach and the whole situation, but not a huge fan of watching football games with Alabama fans. Not going to lie there. But, sometimes you don't get to choose your company there. Eric says 42-17. Again, I assume the Vols. And, yeah, good times. All right. We appreciate everybody for commenting, tuning in. Nugs asks, he said, good show, fellas. We appreciate it, Nugs. He says, will y'all be on the new channel next week? I don't think it will be by next week. If it is, we'll definitely let you know. I think for some amount of time going forward, we're still going to do the live stream here. The clips and other content will be on the new YouTube channel. Again, A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. If you can't find it, I mean, we literally rebranded this today, 3 or 4 hours ago. A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. If you can't find it, search up Orange Y Report. Again, it's my old YouTube channel that we just took over, and we're making it into the show YouTube channel. If anybody's an OG and remembers Orange Y Report when I was on with Jason Swain, it is there, and so go search that up. And Eric, to answer your question, when it's not Labor Day, we did Tuesday because it was Labor Day yesterday. Monday, 6 p.m. Worst case scenario, 7 p.m. like this, where sometimes we have stuff come up, but we really, during the football season, we really try to stick to Monday at 6 p.m. So look out for it there. And again, A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers. Go subscribe to the channel. Monday, 6 p.m. live streams on the A to Z Sports Nashville channel for now. And hopefully in the not too distant future on the new channel, we'll be live streaming there. We just got to get built up a little bit before we start live streaming there. So think that's it. Zach, anything else for the good folks at home?
No, there hasn't been much talk about it this week, but Dave Dorn, 2017 coaching search. He was almost Tennessee's coach, and
nearly.
John Curry ghosted him, just quit answering. The guy was fired up. I remember him when the texts were released, his agent had texted John Curry that, no response, and ended up helping, as Tennessee has so often helped him get a new contract there at NC State that year.
I remember it well. I remember being pissed off of being like, really? The freaking guy from NC State? I mean,
yeah, at that point, we were impossible to please at that point.
Yes.
And look,
well,
it had been botched so bad at that point that we had no faith in that Curry could hire anybody that made sense.
And obviously, Pruitt was a moron, but realistically speaking, that was probably the right choice for that moment.
Yeah. I was in the moment. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it.
You had to go off the reservation there, because if it was a known entity like a Dave Dorn where he just kind of been mediocre, we weren't having it.
No.
Obviously Shiano and that whole everything with that was a no, but like Dave Dorn, it was borderline enough where I think there was enough pissed off fans where Curry was like, okay, not him either. All right, I'll go find somebody else.
And then it was almost Mike Leach, and then he got fired.
Oh man. I still remember that night where
I had the article wrote. I mean, it was done.
It was assumed.
Done, yeah.
It was assumed he was going to be the coach for Tennessee. I went to sleep with that assumption, thinking this was back when I was still doing media full time. I assumed the next day I was going to a Mike Leach press conference, and wake up and is imploded. Whatever had happened there.
At the very least, at least Mike Leach is still part of Tennessee lore forever in that way.
Yeah, it really is, man. God, what an absolute shame. Gone far, far, far too soon. One of the great characters. They almost ended up at Tennessee. All right. Oh, Austin throws in right here at the end. He says 49-17 Vols.
I can see that.
Yes. 41-21, 45-13 according to Zach. That's it for us. Thank you so much. Austin, Eric, Nugs, BG, Billy, Bob, AFK TV, Wes, everybody that commented, tuned in. I always say it. We couldn't do it without you, but I mean it every single time. It means the world. Thank you so much. Subscribe to the A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers channel on YouTube. Search it up. Subscribe, notification bell, yada, yada. You know what to do. I think that is it. We will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.